The scent of old paper and polished wood always filled the air in my study. It was a sanctuary, a world unto itself, where the lines on my maps spoke more eloquently than any words. Years I had spent meticulously tracing the contours of distant lands, charting rivers that snaked across emerald plains, and mapping the intricate dance of coastlines against the relentless sea. Each line, each curve, a testament to the delicate balance of the world, a reflection of the order I craved in my own life. Clara, my wife, rarely ventured into this realm. She found the stillness oppressive, the air thick with the scent of ink and the ghosts of forgotten voyages. Her vibrant spirit, a whirlwind of laughter and color, seemed to clash with the quietude of my maps. Yet, I had always found a strange comfort in the contrast. It was as if the vibrant hues of her personality provided the necessary counterpoint to the muted tones of my work. Of late, however, a disquiet had settled over our home. An undercurrent of unease, subtle yet persistent, had begun to permeate the air. Clara's laughter seemed less frequent, her smiles less genuine. A distracted air clung to her like a shadow, her eyes often distant, lost in thoughts I could not decipher. One evening, while immersed in the intricate details of a newly acquired atlas, I noticed a small, crumpled piece of paper tucked within the pages of her favorite novel. Curiosity piqued, I unfolded it. The hastily scrawled words that met my gaze sent a jolt of icy dread through my veins. A rendezvous, a secret meeting. My heart, once a steady compass, now lurched off course. The name on the note belonged to Julian, the clockmaker. A man of precise movements and measured words. His shop, a sanctuary of ticking gears and intricate mechanisms, stood in stark contrast to my own domain. I had always found his obsession with time, his need to control its every fleeting second, a touch unsettling. A wave of nausea washed over me. The world, once so meticulously ordered on my maps, now felt chaotic, the lines blurring, the colors bleeding into one another. The sanctuary I had so carefully constructed crumbled around me, replaced by a suffocating sense of betrayal. The following days were a blur, a disorienting haze of forced normalcy and gnawing suspicion. I moved through our shared life like a ghost, observing Clara's every move, searching for confirmation of my fears. The way she smoothed her hair, the subtle tremor in her voice when she spoke of Julian, the way her eyes darted away when I looked at her too intently, each tiny gesture became a piece of damning evidence in my mind. I found myself drawn to Julian's shop, a place I had previously avoided. The rhythmic ticking of the clocks, once a source of mild irritation, now became a relentless, mocking reminder of the time I was losing, the time she was giving to another. I would stand across the street, a silent observer, watching as Clara entered the shop, her face alight with a smile she rarely showed me anymore. Inside, I imagined them, their hands brushing as they examined the intricate workings of a clock, their whispers mingling with the ticking gears. I pictured their stolen glances, their hushed laughter, the secret language they had forged in my absence. Each imagined scene was a fresh wound, a searing brand on my soul. My cartography, once a source of solace and control, became a torment. The lines on my maps, once so precise and unwavering, now seemed to twist and writhe, reflecting the chaos within me. The world I had so carefully mapped out was now a treacherous landscape, riddled with hidden paths and deceptive turns. I began to meticulously record their movements, their meetings, their stolen moments. Like a cartographer charting an uncharted territory, I mapped their affair, noting every detail, every nuance. I timed their rendezvous, calculated the distances they traveled, and analyzed their every interaction. I became a silent observer, a phantom in their lives, gathering the pieces of their deception, preparing to assemble them into a map of my own, a map of revenge. Sleep became a stranger. The nights stretched endlessly, punctuated by the phantom echo of ticking clocks and whispered conversations. My dreams, once filled with the thrill of exploration and discovery, were now haunted by images of Clara and Julian, their faces contorted in mocking laughter. I found myself wandering the streets of our town at odd hours, drawn to the places they frequented, the hidden corners where they met. I would linger in the shadows, watching them from afar, my heart a leaden weight in my chest. One night, I followed them to a secluded grove on the outskirts of town. Hidden amongst the trees, I witnessed their embrace, their kisses, their whispered words of love. The sight was a physical blow, a punch to the gut that left me gasping for air. I stumbled back to my study, the image of their intimacy seared into my mind. The maps on my walls seemed to mock me, their intricate lines a testament to the order and control I had lost. In that moment, a chilling resolve took root within me. I would not be a passive observer, a victim of their betrayal. I would use my skills, my knowledge, my meticulous attention to detail, to craft a revenge that would be as intricate and devastating as the maps I created. I would not resort to violence, to the crude satisfaction of physical retribution. My revenge would be more subtle, more insidious. It would be a slow burn, a carefully orchestrated unraveling of their lives, a masterpiece of deception that would leave them questioning their own sanity. I would become the cartographer of their downfall, charting their descent into chaos and despair with the same precision I used to map the world. I would turn their love, their secret world, into a labyrinth of doubt and suspicion, a trap from which they could not escape. The first step was to gain access to Julian's world. I needed to understand his routines, his habits, the intricate workings of his mind. I decided to commission him to create a map, not of some distant land, but of something closer to home, something that would pique his interest and grant me access to his workshop. I approached him with a proposal to map the town's ancient aqueduct system, a labyrinthine network of tunnels and chambers that lay hidden beneath the streets. I knew Julian, with his fascination with the town's history and his meticulous attention to detail, would be intrigued. As expected, he accepted the commission with enthusiasm. He saw it as a challenge, a puzzle to be solved, a chance to showcase his skills. For me, it was an opportunity to observe him, to study his methods, to gain his trust. I spent hours in his workshop, ostensibly discussing the project, but in reality, I was mapping his world. I noted the placement of his tools, the arrangement of his workbenches, the subtle changes in his demeanor when Clara was near. I observed his interactions with his apprentices, his customers, the way he moved through his space. I learned his rhythms, the ebb and flow of his days, the patterns of his life. I became a shadow, a silent observer, gathering the information I needed to craft my revenge. While Julian meticulously researched the aqueduct system, poring over old documents and surveying the town's underground passages, I began to subtly manipulate his environment. I started with his clocks. Julian's workshop was a symphony of ticking, a chorus of timekeepers, each one meticulously calibrated, each one a testament to his obsession with precision. I began to subtly alter their mechanisms, adjusting a gear here, tightening a spring there, creating minute discrepancies in their timekeeping. I started with the smaller clocks, the ones less likely to be noticed. A few minutes here, a few seconds there. Then, I moved on to the larger ones, the grandfather clocks that dominated the workshop, their pendulums swinging like hypnotists' charms. I slowed them down imperceptibly at first, then gradually increasing the discrepancy. The changes were subtle, almost undetectable to the untrained eye, but I knew Julian, with his acute sense of time, would eventually notice. The altered clocks were just the beginning. I started leaving things out of place, misplacing tools, rearranging his notes. I introduced subtle inconsistencies into his work, tiny errors that would gnaw at his sense of order. I was weaving a web of doubt, a subtle dissonance that would slowly erode his confidence, his sense of control. I was turning his world, his sanctuary, into a place of uncertainty, a reflection of the chaos he had brought into my life. My manipulations extended beyond Julian's workshop. I began to sow seeds of doubt in Clara's mind as well, subtly undermining her trust in him. I would casually mention seeing him with another woman, or overhearing a conversation that suggested he was not as devoted as she believed. I played on her insecurities, her fears, her deepest vulnerabilities. I knew her well, knew the cracks in her armor, the doubts that lingered beneath the surface. I used my knowledge to chip away at her confidence, to make her question his every word, his every action. I would leave ambiguous messages on her dressing table and signed notes suggesting secret rendezvous, hidden affections. I would plant seeds of suspicion, hinting at infidelity, at betrayal. I watched as her smile faltered, her eyes clouded with doubt. I was a puppeteer, pulling at their strings, orchestrating their downfall. I was the cartographer of their destruction, charting their course towards a collision, a confrontation that would shatter their world. The altered clocks began to take their toll on Julian. He grew increasingly agitated, his movements jerky, his pronouncements clipped. He would pace the workshop, his eyes darting from one timepiece to another, checking and rechecking their accuracy. He complained of headaches, of insomnia, of a pervasive sense of unease. Clara, too, was becoming increasingly unhinged. My whispers of doubt, the subtle suggestions of infidelity, had taken root in her mind. She grew suspicious of his every move, every word. She questioned his late nights at the workshop, his occasional absences, the faint scent of perfume that clung to his clothes. The tension between them was palpable, a thick, suffocating presence that filled the air whenever they were together. Their conversations were strained, punctuated by long silences and veiled accusations. The love that had once burned so brightly between them was now a flickering flame, threatened by the winds of doubt and suspicion. I watched their descent with a cold satisfaction. My plan was unfolding perfectly. The map of their destruction was taking shape, each carefully placed pin, each meticulously drawn line, bringing them closer to the precipice. The time had come to deliver the final blow. With Julian nearing the completion of his commission, I presented him with the culmination of my own clandestine project, a meticulously crafted map of the aqueduct system. But it was not a true map. It was a fabrication, a labyrinth of deliberate errors and misleading pathways. I had spent weeks studying the real maps, memorizing every detail, every twist and turn. Then, with meticulous care, I had created a mirror image, a distorted reflection of the truth. I had shifted landmarks, altered distances, and introduced dead ends and false passages. It was a cartographic nightmare, a puzzle designed to confound and disorient. I presented it to Julian with a flourish, feigning pride in my accomplishment. He unrolled it eagerly, his eyes scanning the intricate network of lines and symbols. I watched as his brow furrowed, his lips tightening in concentration. He traced the pathways with his finger, his expression growing increasingly perplexed. "There's something not quite right," he muttered, his voice laced with doubt. "The distances don't seem to add up. And these markings, I don't recognize them." I feigned ignorance, offering vague explanations and dismissing his concerns. But the seeds of doubt had been sown. The map, a symbol of his expertise, his meticulousness, was now a source of confusion and frustration. It was a crack in the foundation of his confidence, a subtle undermining of his authority. The fabricated map, combined with the subtly altered clocks and my whispered insinuations, pushed Clara over the edge. Her suspicions, fueled by paranoia and insecurity, reached a fever pitch. She confronted Julian in his workshop, her voice trembling with rage and hurt. "You've been lying to me," she accused, her eyes blazing. "All this time, you've been seeing someone else." Julian, bewildered and hurt, tried to defend himself. He denied her accusations, pleading with her to believe him. But the evidence, or rather the fabricated evidence, was stacked against him. The altered clocks, ticking at their own discordant pace, seemed to mock his protestations of innocence. The map, a testament to his supposed expertise, now stood as a symbol of his deceit. The confrontation escalated, their voices echoing through the workshop, mingling with the relentless ticking of the clocks. Clara, blinded by jealousy and fueled by my insidious whispers, refused to listen to his explanations. She saw only betrayal, only deceit. In a fit of rage, she stormed out of the workshop, leaving Julian standing alone amidst his clocks and his maps, his world crumbling around him. I watched from the shadows, a silent observer, a ghost reveling in the chaos I had created. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Clara, consumed by her perceived betrayal, retreated into a shell of isolation. She refused to see Julian, refused to speak to him, refused to even acknowledge his existence. The vibrant, vivacious woman I had once known was gone, replaced by a hollow, haunted figure. Julian, bewildered and heartbroken, tried to reach out to her, to explain, to apologize. But his efforts were met with silence, with rejection. The town, always eager for gossip and scandal, turned against him. His reputation, once impeccable, was now tarnished. His name whispered with disdain and suspicion. His business suffered, his customers dwindled, his apprentices left. The workshop, once a hive of activity, fell silent, the ticking of the clocks a lonely, mournful sound. He became a pariah, ostracized by the community he had once served. I watched his descent with a cold detachment. There was no satisfaction in his suffering, no sense of triumph. There was only a hollow emptiness, a void where love and trust had once resided. I continued my work, my maps growing more intricate, more detailed. The world outside my study seemed distant, irrelevant. The only landscape that truly held my attention was the one I had created, the map of their destruction. I meticulously documented their every move, their every interaction, their every failure. Clara, trapped in her self-imposed isolation, became a ghost in our own home. She moved through the rooms like a shadow, her eyes vacant, her voice a whisper. The vibrant colors of her wardrobe were replaced by muted grays and blacks. The laughter that had once filled our house was now a distant memory. Julian, meanwhile, became a recluse, a prisoner in his own workshop. The ticking of his clocks, once a symbol of his mastery over time, now became a constant reminder of his failure, his loss. He spent his days hunched over his workbenches, his hands moving mechanically, his eyes devoid of life. I watched as their lives withered, as their spirits broke. There was no joy in their suffering, only a chilling sense of detachment. I had achieved my goal, crafted my revenge, but the victory was hollow, the satisfaction fleeting. The map I had created was a masterpiece of deception, a testament to my skill, my precision, my ability to manipulate the world around me. But it was also a reflection of my own emptiness, my own isolation. I had become a cartographer of despair, charting the course of destruction, but in doing so, I had lost myself. I never revealed my role in their downfall. I remained a silent observer, a ghost in their lives, watching as they crumbled under the weight of their own suspicions and insecurities. The truth of my involvement, the intricate web of deception I had woven, remained hidden, a secret buried deep within the lines of my maps. Sometimes, late at night, when the house was silent and the only sound was the soft scratching of my pen on parchment, I would imagine confessing everything. I would picture myself standing before Clara, laying bare the truth of my actions, the depth of my manipulation. I would imagine the shock in her eyes, the betrayal in her voice, the hatred that would surely follow. But the words always caught in my throat. The fear of her rejection, of her disgust, was too great. I preferred to remain silent, to let them believe that their downfall was of their own making, a consequence of their own weaknesses and failings. My silence became a shield, a barrier between me and the world. I retreated further into my work, my maps becoming my sole companions, my only solace. The lines and symbols on the parchment were my language, my confession, my testament to the darkness that had consumed me. Years passed and the town moved on. Clara remained a recluse, a shadow of her former self, rarely venturing beyond the walls of our home. Julian's shop remained closed, a silent monument to his ruined reputation. The ticking of the clocks had long since ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. I continued my cartography, my maps growing ever more elaborate, ever more detailed. I charted the shifting coastlines of distant lands, the meandering paths of forgotten rivers, the intricate patterns of ancient ruins. But the most detailed map of all, the one etched into the deepest recesses of my mind, was the map of their destruction. It was a map of broken trust, shattered lives, and the chilling precision of my revenge. Every line, every symbol, every meticulously placed detail was a testament to my skill, my cunning, my ability to manipulate the world around me. But the map was also a burden, a weight that grew heavier with each passing year. It was a constant reminder of the darkness that had taken root within me, the coldness that had replaced the warmth of love and compassion. I had become a master cartographer, a weaver of intricate webs of deception. But I had also become a prisoner of my own creation, trapped within the lines of my own map, forever haunted by the ghosts of my revenge. One day, a young apprentice, eager to learn the art of cartography, sought me out. He had heard whispers of my skill, of the intricate maps I created, and he begged me to take him under my wing. I hesitated, reluctant to expose another soul to the darkness that had consumed me. But something in his earnest gaze, his unwavering enthusiasm, stirred a long-dormant ember within me. I agreed to take him on, to share my knowledge, to pass on the skills I had honed over a lifetime. He was a quick learner, eager to absorb every detail, every nuance of the craft. He spent hours in my study, poring over my maps, asking questions, seeking to understand the intricacies of my work. As I taught him, I found myself reliving my own journey, revisiting the lessons I had learned, the mistakes I had made. I began to see my maps in a new light, not just as representations of the world, but as reflections of my own inner landscape. One evening, as we were examining a particularly intricate map of a mountain range, the apprentice paused, his gaze fixed on a small, almost imperceptible detail. "This line," he said, pointing to a faint, barely visible stroke, "it seems out of place. It doesn't quite align with the rest of the contours." I looked at the line, a detail I had long forgotten, a subtle error I had introduced years ago. It was a remnant of my earlier, more turbulent days, a reflection of the chaos that had once consumed me. "It was a mistake," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "A flaw in the map." The apprentice looked at me, his eyes filled with curiosity. "But even mistakes can tell a story," he said. "They can reveal something about the cartographer, about the world he is trying to depict." His words struck a chord within me. I realized that my maps, with all their intricate details and meticulous precision, were not just representations of the world, but also reflections of my own soul. The flaws, the errors, the hidden details, they all told a story of my journey, my struggles, my redemption. I began to see my past actions in a different light. I could not undo the damage I had caused, but I could learn from it. I could use it to guide my apprentice, to help him avoid the mistakes I had made. I began to share my experiences, not just the technical aspects of cartography, but also the ethical considerations, the responsibility that came with the power to shape perception.